All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you all to the CPS Board of Education Health and Safety Committee meeting for today, which is January 23rd, 2023. I'm so excited to have a somewhat new committee here with me today, and I'm going to, of course, allow each person here in attendance with us to introduce themselves. So I'm going to do something a little differently. Typically, I would take roll call, but I am not taking roll call anymore. Who's excited about that? Okay. Woo, 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 woo. So I'm going to go first with introducing myself. I'm Mary Weinberg, the current chair, and we will be talking about selecting a chair a little bit later on our agenda for health and safety. I'm going to go to my right.
And I'm Carolyn Jones. I was on the committee last year, so that makes me old.
Not old.
Okay.
Just knowledgeable. And then to my left, we have two individuals. I'm going to actually start with my far left.
Ironetta Wright, Superintendent of Schools.
And my near left.
I'm the somewhat new committee, Mike Morosky, board member. Thanks for having me.
Yay. I'm so excited to be working with everyone sitting here today. So my goal and hope is to, of course, have an informational, well, not informational, but an informative and an engaging discussion today. So do you guys think we can get that done? All right. So for those of you who turned in virtually, the documents we will be reviewing are available in Board Docs. And if we don't have them on Board Docs, which I hope we do, we will, of course, share them with you on the screen. For members who would love to talk during speaking of the public, you may do so by clicking the chat button now. We're going to leave that chat feature open for about 3 minutes. You can submit your name, your affiliation to the district, your school community, your topic, and your contact information if you would like us to respond back. And hopefully you will be tuning in and ask for someone else to tune in with you for our meetings as well. So our first item on our agenda will be selecting a committee chair. I'm going to now open up the floor for nominations.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Board Member Jones.
I would like to nominate Mary Weinberg as committee chair.
Oh, that just put a smile on my face. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
I will second that nomination.
You know what? You guys are making this too easy and on a Monday. Thank you so much. So, as you all have seen, both of my colleagues have agreed to have me become the chair for health and safety again for another year. So you will see my face here, you will see their faces, and I'm excited. And we are now ready to move on to our second topic. So see how we're just going through this agenda really quickly here. Next, we're going to talk about our approval of our committee meeting schedule. And this is something that's kind of really important, in which we had a discussion at the full board and we decided on keeping health and safety as one of the committees. But something that we wanted to discuss would be how many times per year we would meet, whether we would meet quarterly, whether we would do 6 times a year, whether we would do every single month. So I'm going to actually open it up to my colleagues to kind of discuss and hear their thoughts on meeting the schedule, and then we'll get into the topics as well. Yes, Board Member Jones.
Yes, just to offer a little bit of a perspective, which I'm sure my colleague, Mr. Morosky, shared this already. The Health and Safety Committee was created basically in COVID. And at that time, it was critical that we had ongoing meetings, sessions, and planning time to be able to address those issues. Now that we are not completely out of COVID, I think just the priority status that the committee has doesn't necessarily warrant us having to meet on a monthly basis. I do think it is important to maintain a regular schedule, and I am proposing actually once a quarter. For me, it feels like that based on what I believe the agenda is, given I believe we have the superintendent's schedule and then maybe some other suggestions, that we have the meeting on a quarterly basis and that we reserve the right to call an emergency meeting if we need to, because you never know. COVID may flare up again. We may need to do that. So that's kind of where I am with that.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your input on that. I'm going to go to you. Do you have anything else to add? And then I'll go to Superintendent Wright as well. And then I'll add my piece.
And thank you, Chair Weinberg. I'm in alignment with former Vice President Jones, Board Member Jones. Sorry,
just
I won't
can't
do it
let it
anymore
go.
after
We
today.
can't let it go.
I won't do it in the big board meeting. That got out of hand, but I can do it here. Yes, that is correct context. Born out of the Student Achievement Committee, of course, came Health and Safety, and now Student Achievement is sort of covered by Committee of the Whole, which I think is smart. The only thing I'd add to Board Member Jones, I second the quarterly. I think that's good. So in addition to the health, I think also one of the most important parts of this committee, of course, is the safety piece, and continue to have those conversations about the school resource officers, the prevalence of threats all across the country. And this committee's done an awesome job, if I may add an editorial comment regarding all those things last year, my opinion. I've been trying to get them to be talked about for a while, and it wasn't really until last year I felt like we really did. So thank you to Bear and to Ms. Jones. So I agree. I'm with you. I think quarterly makes sense. The only question I would have is if this meeting counts as quarterly, because I know this will be a pretty quick organizational type meeting. You see what I'm saying? Like, meaning, would we have another meeting this quarter, or would this count as our quarterly meeting?
We can talk about it.
We
I
can talk
think
about it.
this could count as the quarter meeting, depending on what I propose. But
Cool.
let me hear what Board Member Jones has to say, and then
Cool.
also we'll go with Superintendent Wright.
Well, just to respond to that, I guess I was thinking that this will be the first of quarterly meetings.
Okay.
So it would be and we could define specifically what months those are.
Okay. Yeah. Superintendent Wright.
I definitely concur. This is one of the committees that my chief of staff will actually serve as the liaison on. So after we get through this meeting and the next one, I will pass it off to him to attend the meetings. But I think looking at what the previous work plan was for the committee and how we have merged together in Committee of the Whole, focus on student achievement, there are also some very specific areas that were being reviewed in health and safety that there was interest for the entire board. So routing those areas into the Committee of the Whole as well will give us an opportunity to still address what those areas are and to do those with the entire board. So I definitely concur with the committee members.
Well, see, that was very easy. And I was just going to add in that I also agree that we should definitely have health and safety quarterly. And after reviewing the work plan from last year, and then also looking at the school calendar and then looking at our topics, this is something that I wanted to kind of recommend to you all. And then also Superintendent Wright, I did look at your things as well, and we can kind of discuss that as well too. So when I looked at the work plan for last year and the different topics that fell in within health and safety, I came up with a quarter one of consisting of us having a meeting in September. I came up with quarter two having a meeting in December, quarter three having a meeting in February, and then quarter four having a meeting in April. And then there was an extra June month in which I didn't know if you all wanted to decide on having anything of that nature. Now, that may not work.
Well, I have a question. Are you operating on the school year calendar? Because our board committees are on a
Right.
annual.
So that's why I was going to ask after I presented this, if you could
I
help
got
me
you.
with
Go
that.
ahead.
So yes. So when I was thinking of quarter, just looking at the school, I do know that we work off of a little bit different. So we may have to shift the months a little bit. I knew that would be easy. So in terms of the topic, so let's say for quarter one, I came up with the discussion of our topic was student conduct and discipline data, doing mental health, and doing pedestrian safety in our SRO piece. I figured that could maybe work into that particular quarter or for that month. The month name may change. Then in December, I came up with in-school safety and lockdowns, and also then discussing everything sexual abuse, sexual discrimination, sexual harassment prevention, dating violence, and then sexual orientation. And then in February, I looked at the topics of student, also their conduct and the discipline data, again, repeating that twice, going into heart health, safety, and bullying, along with athletics and extracurricular safety. For the quarter four, I ended with safety in the community, menstrual health, and then gun safety. And I will now open it up to you all, I guess maybe letting me know how we could change them up to fit the board meeting months, and then maybe to discuss also the topics, if you are in agreement with the topics. Mm-hmm.
So I think the months, I don't know if the topics matter. I think the months would actually be like January, April, August, and December.
Yeah, we're going to change the months.
Okay.
So that's what Board Member Carolyn was talking about as well. So did you have a suggestion for changing the months first?
I think it might be easier to go by the end of the year.
Okay, that's fine.
The topics I don't have an issue with.
Right.
I think where they flow on that annual calendar would make all the difference, and some of that would depend on, and I can't remember which topic you said, but I know some of that data doesn't come out until later. So
And
we
that
have
is
to
perfect. That's why I need you guys.
Yeah.
See?
We have to make sure that it aligns.
Perfect.
What I might suggest is that if we agree on the quarterly dates, that you compile that list and give it to the superintendent, who can then align, you and she can align
Okay.
where they go.
Can you tell me again, you were just saying the month names. You said January? Mm-hmm.
If we just go with the kind of the months of for the calendar year.
So January.
January would be now, April, August, and December.
So if we had the meeting in January, we wouldn't have one again until when?
August.
No.
April.
Okay.
Every 3 months.
That's how I was like, hold on. Okay.
Except for the August one, because we don't meet in July.
And right, I was going to say, we don't meet in July or,
The name,
August. We meet in August.
but
So
then-
you
so
said January,
April,
April,
August,
December.
and December.
August, and then December. Okay. So do all of my other colleagues agree with that, January, April, August, and December?
And this would count as a January one.
I think so.
So the thing about it is if we are, for our agenda items, and if we're selecting and agreeing on that particular meeting in January,
We're
it would
already,
just,
because we don't have any of those topics on the agenda
Right,
today,
we
I
don't.
think they should merge with April, April, August, and December.
so then would we not have any topics in January, or should we have topics in January?
That would be the day.
That's today.
Right, that would be today. So would we want to add something on to that? Not, obviously. Well, I guess it wouldn't matter for next year. It would
So
be
this is
different.
why I asked if this was going to count as our meeting, because to
I
me,
see what you're
it makes sense that, so when you actually started with the first four, September, December, February, April, my mind immediately went to, that makes sense. Let's just do that. And then we'll meet in February again, and then just go with this cadence. We'll just have a big break between April and September.
So are you talking about the dates that I said, September, December?
The only reason I'm suggesting that is because I don't know that this is a very robust, these are very robust topics.
And a lot of them repeat too as well.
Yeah.
A lot of them, I didn't hear you. A lot of them are what?
They repeat. Yes.
And so I don't really care, but I don't care if we only have 3 more meetings, quite frankly. I'm not gonna fight for more meetings, but that is why I was saying, hey, is this gonna count as one of them, or should we? I'm fine with what the superintendent said. I'm fine with those 4. I'm quite frankly fine with the first one you said, and just meet again in February or not. But that's why I was curious, because I don't know that we want to amend the agenda right now on the fly.
Is there anything on that list that you read for the month of January that you would deem high priority that needs to be addressed as early as February, or can they wait until April? And I know that's a long time.
It is a long time, and I actually,
It was
Now-
conduct, discipline,
Yeah,
bullying.
that one.
That would have been the February.
and I'm wondering, can we maybe change the April to March instead of April? Can we move it to March and not do April? I feel like that's a little long. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever
I
you
think I'd like to go with and put that as March. So we'll have the January, we'll do March. Yeah, I was going to say June would probably be good. And then we would then come back in,
August.
September.
yeah, I wouldn't want to wait all the way till we had here down December. So I would do September. Yeah, I think so.
No, March, June.
So, yeah,
That's
so we
what I
have
heard.
January, March, June, September. hmm And then we would come back in January. I think.
A suggestion
Yes.
we could add December as a planning time for the next year.
Oh, so
For
then we're ready to
January,
go.
then we go to
That
January.
actually
Yeah.
makes good sense. Yes, I like that. December planning. Phyllis, are you getting this all down? So we're deciding on our quarter one would be January, quarter two would be March, quarter three would be June, quarter four would be September, and then in December, we would have a meeting that would be our planning meeting, getting ready for January. Now, the next question would be the topics. So as you all, if you're looking at your work plan and you see kind of how we broke it down by month, calendar, and then presenter, I checked off some of the things that I thought was a high priority, and I wanted to include bullying, pedestrian safety SRO, of course, student conduct discipline data report, gun safety, menstrual health. What I did not include, and I just wanted to see the thoughts from my colleagues, was resource coordinators and community learning centers. What are your thoughts on that? I figured we could utilize that in a different.
Well, one of the things about these topics, which you all have heard me say a lot, is that there's a lot of overlap among committees. Now, personally, I think that could easily fall under student achievement. It just depends on when you say resource coordinators, community learning centers, what is it that we want to know? And I know it's probably been a standard subtopic in there, and I'm not quite sure, because I've never served on health and safety prior to this year. I'm not quite sure what the content we're looking at. What is it? Are we looking for an update or what?
I feel that we could take that topic off and that could be updated somewhere else. Okay. So thoughts, Mike? You're fine with that? And so if I took those two off, we would still have, obviously, safety in the communities. Again, a repeat of student conduct and discipline data report. I know that we wanted that a couple of times within health and safety. Mental health, which is very important. I figure that physical health could be incorporated into one of the topics as well. Then we have in-school safety, lockdown drills, the athletic, extracurricular, physical, and mental health. And then, of course, the sexual abuse, sexual discrimination, and so forth. So what we would have to decide is just if you all agree on those particular topics, breaking them down into the quarters, the 4 quarters that we have. And then hearing from Superintendent Wright on her topics and what she was possibly thinking as well.
You didn't include
I did not. I do want that, but I figured that could go into physical health.
Gotcha.
Yes, and just make it a whole, just big physical health, nutrition. Yes. Superintendent Wright, I think you had something.
I'm sorry.
Did you have something that you had wanted to say first? Okay, perfect. All right, any suggestions? So when I wrote on my little messy paper here, which I'm okay with editing, so let's say in January, I put student conduct, discipline data, mental health, and pedestrian safety / SRO. What are your thoughts for that in terms of being discussed in January?
So today?
So you know how we obviously can't do that today.
Right.
No. So I would have to move that to somewhere else, obviously.
Right.
So I guess.
So March.
Let me work on the one for March then.
Okay.
Yes. So for March, I put in-school safety, lockdowns, and then the sexual abuse, including all 6 items there. Or I could take that and move that to somewhere else and take the topics that I had for January and put into March.
The only question I have, I love all the time. I think this is right. I think this is all right. The only question I would have would be for the superintendent, which is, and I imagine and to the chair, because you have more history than I do, is the data and the info we're looking for, is it aligned with this academic calendar? That is, do we have the data for like student conduct in March?
Yeah, I would have to ask Superintendent Wright.
And then that would help me. Like,
okay, perfect. So Superintendent Wright.
Yeah, so, and I'll have to pull up the calendar for the quarters.
Okay.
So for example, on the proposal that I provided the board earlier, the reason that I added discipline quarterly without saying the month that it was in is because that is something, both discipline data and bullying data, especially with it being discipline specifically, with that being one of our areas under our goals and guardrails, that would be something that I would be sharing out with the board pretty consistently. And so that's one of the reasons that moving it to a quarterly, but quarterly with the entire board, might also resolve some of the space in terms of what needs to be covered in health and safety. In terms of the quarter for March, we began this quarter in January, so it runs for a 9-week period after that. So we're currently, the data from last quarter, we're preparing now to share for Cal. And then the data for what would be the third quarter, which would be January through February, we could have that available for March. So we should be able to have data
So we
to
could
share
put that
in
as a
March
possible
if we're
topic.
looking to do
Okay.
it in health and safety and in Cal.
Go ahead. Speak freely here.
Thank you. I think, Madam Chair, that you gave a good listing based on the former work plan of the topics that this committee considers very important for this committee to address. I'm going to go back to a previous recommendation, is that maybe you could put it on a calendar just as a draft and ask the superintendent to take a look at it and do exactly what she just did. Just align it with the dates that the data would be available. And
Okay.
then the two of you could confirm that if that was.
So I just want to make sure that you both are fine with the topics that I stated.
Oh,
So
yes.
now I just need to break them down and then we can have a further discussion.
Topics are great.
I can do that. All right. Did you now want to further add about your piece or?
I don't think there's anything else
Okay.
to add. Essentially, what my request was not to necessarily have to cover it twice.
Absolutely.
But if there's a request to cover it twice,
Gotcha.
because it sounds like that's the request, then we would keep it.
And
there.
we'll make sure that it won't be too much
So
to cover.
I would just put forth the option of when y'all are coming up with the calendar and when these things align, that if there are items that are already going to be presented in Cal, that we not have them repeated here.
Right, especially if it's in the same month as well. So like, for example, March. If you're already reporting out to the Cal in March, then we don't need to obviously have that particular subject in probably health and safety. So we can kind of discuss that after I bring that up and write it up.
I just wanted to mention, superintendent doesn't know this yet because I just talked to Ben this morning, but
Okay.
I'm supposed to join your call tomorrow with Ben to talk about how that student achievement piece flows.
All right.
And this is a similar conversation to what we're having here. And I think the intent is to try to balance things out so that we're not duplicating.
Right, absolutely.
Which is, the committees have enough work to do, and I'm sure you have enough work to do. So
Okay. All right, so that was easy. Thank you all so much.
it was a good process.
Whoop, whoop. I did forget to announce in the beginning, I just wanted to be very transparent and wanted to give a huge thank you to our legislative liaisons, Mr. Kearney and Mr. Glover. They are usually here at Health and Safety, and they are now being moved to a different committee. So I just wanted to thank them for their hard work and for their dedication in providing health and safety with the updates that they have going on about the different bills and all of the legislative topics. So I think that we should give them a big round of applause, even though they're not here. So we are moving right along to new business. It was brought up in a board meeting as an assignment for this committee of health and safety to engage with administration on security resources at schools. And that consisted of metal detectors, defibrillators, staff trained on utilizing equipment, et cetera. So I wanted to kind of open it up onto the floor to kind of hear your thoughts on this request, and then also to hear from administration kind of how this is incorporated in the different schools or the different plans that are in place. Anyone?
Yeah. So this was a
Okay.
recent ask at,
Yes.
I think, the last board meeting. So we've started compiling the information. I think what I wanted clarification on in terms of just the areas we have, we talked about metal detectors, defibrillators, or the AED equipment, as well as training for staff. So what we are preparing is the breakdown of each of those across all of the schools, as well as like the number of drills, in terms of just the update around the drills as well. So in terms of, I think it was for us to talk about this time, but not necessarily the presentation yet. We would have the information complete by February, so we can determine whether that's shared with the board to then be reviewed at the March meeting.
I was going to suggest that.
Or, just kind of as we've done before,
Okay.
just share it with the entire board to discuss at the March meeting.
I think that would be a great idea. And I know this topic was brought up by board member Bolton, and I know especially in the schools, just really making sure in terms of your defibrillator, I can't ever say this word. I'm going to say it very slowly. Defibrillators. Did I say it correctly?
Defibrillators.
Say it 3 times, Superintendent.
Defibrillators.
Again.
Defibrillators.
See, you do it so well. The word that she said, just really making sure that, especially with our students who may experience cardiac arrest, or whether it's staff or anyone, that, we have those individuals that are prepared and trained to, utilize the equipment appropriately. So I think that that's a very big issue and just concern among the community and also people in the schools.
And just as an update, we do have the AED equipment or defibrillators in every one of our schools. So that's just to answer that question. We do have them available and operable in every one of our schools. We have about 185 actually across the district, so there is at least one in each school.
Perfect. And Superintendent, right on that same topic, can we also, within that update, be updated about the seating for staff as well?
Sure.
I know I did get an email from someone in the community regarding just different avenues and different programs that they have for CPR guidelines within schools, and I can share that information. Or I think it was probably shared with you already.
I think it was.
Yes.
We do also plan to include metal detectors and defibrillators, as we discussed, and trainings and under training, CPR, first aid, mental health first aid, as well as stop the bleed.
Awesome. Great.
So I'm trying to grasp the last statement. We do have metal detectors in all schools?
We do have metal detectors in terms of cross-referencing all the schools. They're mostly at the high schools. So currently, just in terms of doing the review, there's 79. Schools have them.
And has there been any thought about the need for metal detectors in all the schools? And I know, and I have to say, it's a very controversial topic because the kids are young. But I think my opinion is, given the current environment and the fact that we see it happening, I am personally really concerned that we don't have them. If we don't, and if we don't, maybe we can talk about whether or not it's something we can do, because I know the financial implications of that are great too.
And to your point, Board Member Jones, you're correct. It is a very I'm going to say heated discussion, just for not having a better choice of words. You have some school leaders, and having dealt with this for just a very long time, sometimes I feel like I'm in deja vu when I start thinking about some of the topics that we work through. You have some school leaders that feel very strongly about them not being in their building because of the connectivity to what it says to students, especially the younger students. So I think it's something that we really have to explore, have additional conversation with principals around as well, even feedback from families. Because we have to decide if we're going to take a position one way or the other, because it gets pretty involved when we start looking at what we're, and there are, if we decide to go that direction, it really becomes a matter of choice, because there are detectors right now that are not, all of them are not like the traditional ones that are, that are just the tall square ones that you walk through. There are many of them now. They cost more, but there are many of them now that you can place on the ground so that you actually walk, over the detector versus. So there are some options there. I think the main thing is whether or not we choose to go that direction. I think the third thing is also making sure that we are not having a knee-jerk reaction to what appears to be a fairly isolated kind of situation, and not one that we should not consider and think about and plan around, but is that the direction that we're looking to go collectively? So I think there's a lot more to get some information around.
Yeah, I agree with that. But, all it takes is once.
That's correct.
And so whatever we do, I think we as a district have to be on top of the measures that we're taking, that we can be assured that they work when we need them to work. And that goes even with the
See?
defibrillator.
We're there together.
It is,
Simple.
for example, it's great that every school has them, but if people don't know where they are and how to use them, that 5 minutes or 10 minutes it takes to access it isn't going to help. So we want to make sure that that's incorporated in their training and that they are accessible. And my last comment related to this is, and it's more of a question, and maybe our former policy chair can answer this. Do we have a policy that's specific around how major incidents get reported?
I was going to ask that.
Amazing, because that was one of the last new policies I signed at the end of last year, and we're working through it.
Okay.
And there's a lot of guidance from the state, because there was some legislation passed regarding this, because we brought this up, so it's like in October, I think, or November, the same thing. The answer is no, there wasn't.
Okay.
There was certainly, I think, procedures in the school, but like a lot of things, and I say that with great respect, but like a lot of things, it was just kind of, different everywhere. And so some schools might have a different process. Typically, it was the same person it would go to, but we're shoring it up now. Okay. So yeah, you'll see that soon.
Okay.
Good question. Good question. Well, we are moving right along to other business. Do we have any other business that we need to discuss? Okay. Do we have anybody for hearing of the public? Well, this is a record time. It is 3:33. Wow. Are you sure you don't want to talk about anything else? Okay, very good, very good. Well, we have nothing else to discuss. This meeting is adjourned. I want to thank you all.